What's happening, y'all? This is Todd Wilson with another episode of Elevate Your Game. Today we have husband, father, college coach, basketball extraordinaire, Mr. Jeff Dunlap.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So we love to start this show off with the wall of hoop movies. Your favorite hoop movie of all time and why?
Oh boy, there's so many good ones out there. It's not easy to just say one, but I'm kind of old school, so Hoosiers would be my number one. I really love the whole idea, Gene Hackman coming into that as the coach, coming into that setting with a bunch of kids who didn't have the fundamentals of the game down.
Yeah.
And some of those first scenes were them dribbling through cones and learning how to cut, and learning how to pass, simple stuff that a lot of coaches don't do today. It's gone by the wayside a little bit. And I'm an old school coach. I grew up in the John Wooden basketball camps and how he taught it and how important fundamentals were. And still to this day, 40 years later for me, everything that he taught then is what you should be teaching now.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, we've changed and we've moved on and no longer do you need to do a jump stop. Well, of course you do.
Right.
Of course you do. So Hoosiers would be my movie of choice for that
100%.
reason.
No, I love how you say, man, the focus on the fundamentals now, right? And the kids do it because when they come to a basketball session with me, we are doing those things, and they're like, and I'm like, and you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Let me correct you. Let me
Right.
show you actually how to sit in a triple threat and the pivot and the jump stop and do all these things. And there's some basketball purists out there who are trying to keep that part of the game.
Trying, yeah, and they need to fight for it. And I think there's a lot more fundamentals being applied at the professional level. I think I watch NBA games and those guys have got it down. I think those coaches are hammering it even more than young coaches.
Yes.
And maybe because the young coaches don't know themselves. So, I'm not saying they're deliberately moving away from fundamentals, but they need to grasp what's really important for how you move around the floor, your balance on the floor, your, like you say, triple threat, that having the basketball, holding the ball, what to do with the ball. It's not just a flippant random thing. You do need to be technically sound.
Yes.
And so the fact that you're teaching that at core, and the fact that there are still some coaches out there hanging on to it and trying to keep it alive, it's critically important to the game.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we like to get started with, after our wall of hoop movies
Yeah.
here, but when did you fall in love with basketball?
I loved all sports as a kid, as a junior high school kid. I could throw a football a long way. I could pitch a baseball. I could do different things, and I loved it. But then height came into play, and my frame was always pretty slender. So football kind of got pushed out the door because coaches told me you don't want to get hurt, getting knocked around the block. Baseball, I loved baseball, but I wasn't as good at it. And then all of a sudden, basketball just kind of clicked. And again, height and just the love of the game, being out there. I could shoot it pretty good, and the stimuli of shooting the ball and seeing it go in was like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then as I moved up in the world of basketball, high school varsity player, then I became an all-league player and an all-area player, and things started. I was like, hey, I'm not bad. Yeah. And so then I let it take me onto a scholarship at UCLA somehow. I don't know, in the blink of an eye, I got a chance to go there and go to school there, and it was fantastic. And played with Reggie Miller, who was a better shooter than I was. But it was fun to have that experience. And then I just kind of stayed with the game. I just rolled right into going back to my high school, North Hollywood High School, and being a junior varsity coach and figuring that out. And then I went to a junior college and I coached them. I kind of learned the recruiting piece a little bit. Then I coached women for 3 years, and that was fantastic because you learn with women how to really communicate the game even more than you do with men, because they hang on your every word. And so you got to be clear and succinct and accurate. And so you learn how to talk your message and to talk your skills. And then I went to Division II basketball, and then multiple schools in the Division I ranks. And with each one, where there's a different experience, a different challenge. I've always said my life has been basketball, and it beats working for a living. I mean, and how fantastic it's been to stay in it the way it's allowed me to do it. So
That's awesome, man. Just taking it from, so middle school is when you truly picked it up. wasn't took it seriously.
Yeah.
Was there somebody? So you said you could shoot it. Self-taught, or did somebody kind of show you the ropes?
You know, I had my father was an actor, and he had a fellow actor. His name was James Luisi. He was in the Rockford Files way back in the days. And James Luisi actually played some professional basketball, and he taught me the arc on the ball and how important it was when I was a young kid. Really young, like 12 or 13, and I'm in the backyard and I'm shooting, and there was this is a crazy deal, but there was a power cord that ran from my garage to the house, and it was up there pretty good. And I'd stand back there at 20 feet, and I was shooting the ball, and forever I shot under the cord, I didn't want to hit the wire. And he came out there one day and he says, shoot it over the wire. And so I'm back there and I'm lofting that ball up there. I'm like, my goodness, this is, because I had to make sure it didn't hit the power cord. And with that, I developed arc. And I'd heard about arc and opening the rim up and all the stuff coaches say, but I didn't appreciate it till I was shooting up over that wire and needed to get it over the wire. And then all of a sudden that ball was dropping in from the sky. Well, it changed my life. I mean, it changed my life as a shooter, because now my accuracy went up, my efficiency, even when defended. If somebody got a hand up on me, because I was shooting up high up over a wire, you couldn't guard me.
Hard to guard.
I wasn't shooting out at all. I was shooting straight up over something. That helped me immensely all the way through the rest of my basketball career.
That's amazing. It sounds like the Kyrie Irving, they say he had a basketball hoop in the middle of the glass was missing. And so that's why he's able to finish on all parts of the backboard.
How about that? And it makes
It's
sense.
the same kind of thing. It's like you have this obstacle because how your house is.
That's right.
But it helps build
something
that's
a skill that, and his skill is one of the best I've ever seen, finishing in the lane and finishing, like you say, up over all corners of the board. It's unbelievable.
Yeah,
but
so
now,
I'm about to invent a backboard without the center of the glass.
Market
We're
it.
going to
Yeah,
finish it,
it's a good idea.
And now I'm going to get a power cord too and just say, hey, put this across
and
your
run
backyard.
it up there. That's right.
You're going to be able to shoot and finish. There you go.
That's it.
So transitioning into basketball. So your dad is an actor, so he didn't play ball at all.
No.
And so you are kind of the beginning of the legacy of the basketball in your family. How did you know? I guess you said you just kept climbing. How did you know to take this serious, and what things did you do? There was no trainers back then, right?
Not
You couldn't
really.
go to the corner and get developed. What were you doing to get better and better, at your game?
Today you hear about the fact that it's sad that they don't play 3-on-3 anymore, and I'm part of that generation where I really felt like 3-on-3 basketball changed my life. In terms of the competitiveness of it, trying to win, stay on the court type deal. If you lose, you had to sit out, so you're battling. You're also make it, take it, so you can repeat moves, you can repeat skills, and you're doing it against live players instead of against a cone or in a drill or what. It's totally different when you're going against a human being. And if you appreciate the fact that you're going against a human being who's better than you, that even makes it better. Instead of taking the easy way out, let's see if I can make this jab or this crossover step or whatever. Let's see if I can make that work against a guy who's good, who can block my shot. How am I going to get it off? How fast do I have to be? How much shiftiness do I have to have? And you create that in live play, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3 basketball. And I would think that's probably, like you say, no trainers in my time. There were no trainers. My dad rebounded for me and went into the gym with me at 6 in the morning, and I got shots up and I did things, and he was my trainer and knew nothing about basketball. He didn't really have anything to offer me in terms of what I was doing right or wrong. But God love him, he allowed me to coach myself based on what I knew about the game from people that I had heard from, the John Woodens again of the world, or whoever I was exposed to. So I miss that part of basketball, not for me. Obviously, I don't play anymore, but for my son, I missed it for him. He didn't grow up in a 3-on-3 open gym on a Saturday morning, go play for 3 hours type app. It doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
And I think that would have made him that much better. So we try to find ways, and we did piecemeal it together with a new generation and a new world of opportunity. But if I could dial back anything and bring it forward to today's kids, it would be that open gym, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, hours on end.
Hours on it. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I think they actually are taking a big dive with 3-on-3 in America now and trying to make it as big as it is in other countries, because other countries have it. The 3-on-3 tournaments are huge.
Yeah.
And so, speaking with someone maybe a month ago, they were talking about they're bringing that 3-on-3 to the youth side. And so I know they have it in the Midwest. It's huge in the Midwest, actually, the 3-on-3 leagues and all those things.
Need them.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's...
You get more touches as well, and no coach. Like, that's the thing, is no coach, you're just playing. Like, just go hoop and
stuff that you figure out on your own, it's going to make more an impression on you anyway.
Right.
You know, it's like all of a sudden you have that epiphany, the light bulb comes on, and boom, you make a move, and oh my gosh, that works. And it's like, and now you'll transfer that over into a game because you'll believe in it because you did it yourself. The benefit is enormous.
Yeah, absolutely. So North Hollywood High. So, you know, this is at a time where you just kind of went to your home school, right? There wasn't any, recruitment or anything like that.
That's right.
High school basketball then, can you remember, any instances playing against high-level talent, part of the game that stuck out to you then while you're being developed in high school?
Well, I think I figured out, again, like you said, high schools were as good as the local talent was. And North Hollywood High School at that time was really good. The private schools had not embarked on recruiting players and stealing players from the public schools and letting them come into more of a basketball factory type of setting, where with that, so we really looked forward. The city section, the LA city section, did have great players scattered all around Crenshaw High School and Fremont's and Kennedy and all the, and we had a Christmas tournament at North Hollywood High School, one of the best at that time, that always had the best teams come in and some of the best players. And I remember the first time we played Kennedy High School, and they had Darren Day, who was a McDonald's All-American, and Stuart Gray, who was a McDonald's All-American. And then here comes St. Bernard's, and the all-starting five from St. Bernard's was Division I players. And you're starting to be exposed to what a high-level player was. Mm-hmm. And we had good players at North Hollywood. We didn't have Division I players. So when the Division I players came in from the various schools, that was eye-opening because you could see the length, the size, the speed. There's a reason they went to the schools they went to. So you had to really lift your game to play not only competitively in those games within high school, but if you had dreams and aspirations, boy, you got an eye-opening experience. Like, can you really play at that level?
Yes.
A lot of kids think they can, or they're told they can, and they can't. And I realized, nobody told me whether I could or not. I realized as a junior in high school, and I'm a starting varsity player, I wasn't good enough. I knew it. All of a sudden, my handles weren't good enough. I didn't defend well enough. I was not good enough. And I told myself that by watching them play. And so that became a summer in between my junior and senior year where I had to really figure it out, or I wasn't going to play college basketball. Not at any level. I had to really, and I was tall, but that wasn't enough. Yeah. You say, I look back to my time, I got it from playing against other players at other high schools that way. I think today's generation now gets it more from playing AAU basketball, travel teams, if you play on the Nike circuit or you play on the Adidas circuit, and now you're playing against ramped up AAU team. Well, now I didn't have any of that. That didn't exist in the 1981 year that I graduated. There wasn't that kind of a format or a platform to see that level of player every day like these kids do today.
Yeah.
So today's player knows more if he's really a product good enough to play at that level.
They should know.
They should know. Yeah,
I
that's
I don't think they view it like you have the perspective of, hey, I'm not as good as these guys coming in who are Division I level. You have that self-realization of, hey, I got to put some more work in, which you probably eventually did because you ended up at UCLA, right? But these kids today, I think they see that, they mimic them, their moves and what they can do on the court, and think that's all that comes with it, is the highlight. Like, I can do those same moves. That's a highlight of these kids. They're not watching the full game. They're not watching the intangible stuff that needs to happen, the boxing out, the playing tough defense, the making the right pass, those aren't on highlight film. So they should be aware. But I'm telling you, there are kids out there who truly believe, oh, I'm Division One. I'm Division One because they're athletic and they can do it between cross and can
Right.
step back and shoot a three. Like,
Right.
that's just a skill set. I could teach anybody to do that. But can you play basketball? Which goes back to our first conversation about fundamentals.
Right.
And locking those in. So
Yeah, you
they
better
should
have-
be aware. I think that if we can figure out how to get kids to do that, I think a lot of kids would be better off. I think a lot of parents would be better off in recognizing my kid might be an NAIA player.
Yeah.
Or my kid may not be able to play past high school.
Yeah.
And
all of that is okay.
right. And just support them into what they do.
It's okay. That's right. Don't force it. Don't force the square peg into a round hole. Don't do it. You know?
So what was that transition like between your junior and senior year, acknowledging that, hey, I'm not good enough. So what did you do different to?
Well, I had Division II, Division III offers, interest, whatever. I don't even remember coming out of my junior year into my senior year. But I wanted to be a Division I player. Like every kid, you want to be Division I. And so I opted to go junior college. I went through my senior year. We didn't have a very good team. We graduated everybody the year before, so we went down a little bit. Wasn't playing at a super high level as a team. Went to junior college, had a decent freshman year, redshirted my second year, thinking I'll have 3 years left at wherever. Mm-hmm. And I was hoping, realistically, I'm very realistic. I'm modest. I was kind of hoping I would end up in the big sky somewhere or something like that and play at a school like that. Had a great summer. I played in a summer pro league here in the Valley, and the guy that owned the league owned a cleaners in Westwood. And of all things, you never know how your path is going to go, but he ran this league out at El Camino High School in the Valley, and the cleaners that he ran did all the UCLA's coaches' clothes. So I guess a couple of the, Larry Farmer at the time, a couple of the assistants came through and they said, hey, and I was doing really well in his league. I was averaging a lot and whatever. And he told those guys at UCLA, you need to come out and see this kid, or I would have never been on their radar. And this was in the summer. This was like July of going into that.
You didn't
fall.
have the mixtape going?
I did, yeah. So they came out, watched the game, turned around and invited me to come back and play pickup with the Bruins at Poly Pavilion. Well, that's a whole nother story in itself, how nervous I was going to what is this? This wasn't who. I loved UCLA. I was a UCLA fan, but to all of a sudden be going to UCLA to audition of sorts Anyway, long story short, it worked out. I got offered
I have to hear about the audition. Tell me how nervous you were.
Oh, well, it was unbelievable. It was a pickup game, and it was at Poly, and it was a team that had Ralph Jackson and Kenny Fields, Montel Hatcher, Reggie Miller. It was a good team, and Stuart Gray, and they were coming off being an NCAA tournament team that had done really well, and Rod Foster and that group had just left that year before, Michael Holton. And this was the Bruins. This was the Bruins, and I'm out there just trying to hold on. But as I played within the hour and a half, 2 hours, I started doing a little bit more of what I do well, and that's, if I caught and I was open, I'd knock the shots down. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they were looking at me. Looking back in retrospect, were they looking at me as, can he make shots and can he help us? I'm not sure they were looking at that. I think they were looking at how competitive is he? Can he hold his own? Can he defend? Because we can't put him, even in practice, you can't put him in if he's just a liability not to execute anything that we're doing strategically. How are his fundamentals? Is he up to speed? I think once they saw that, I could have gone in there and made 30 points in a pickup game and been somebody they would have said, no, we're not interested in that. Versus somebody who'd come in and played the right way. I played the right way. And I think that made a difference. And so they worked it out and they got me in. And for 3 years, I'm very proud of the fact that my parents never had to pay a dime for me to go to college. And though I didn't play very much, it still was a fantastic experience. And I wanted to coach, and I knew that having UCLA on my resume, UCLA basketball on my resume, that was going to pay dividends.
That's a good reference.
Yeah,
that's a good reference for
that's
sure.
Right. That's right.
That's awesome. So how early did you know that you wanted to coach?
Not right away. I wanted to get into broadcasting. I thought it'd be really cool to be play-by-play. When you grow up in this town with Chick Hearn and Vince Scully and everybody else, you can think that's the greatest thing in the world. I want to do that. And I took a class with Fred Hessler at UCLA, and he was the voice of the Bruins, and that's what I wanted to do and the whole deal. When I came out of college, I actually did some junior college games on cable TV. But then my high school said, hey, come be the JV coach. Just come and help us out a little bit. I'm like, okay, I had time. So I'm doing a little broadcasting, and then I'm doing the JV basketball thing. Well, I loved it. I loved teaching the game. I mean, it wasn't like I got out of college thinking I was going to do that full time.
Right.
But all of a sudden, I fell into really liking it and giving back to the game, so to speak, as you say. And so I went from JV coach, assistant varsity, junior college assistant, head women's JUCO,
That was
boom,
up
boom,
at,
boom, boom, College of the Canyons.
College of the Canyons, yeah.
And all that was just, my journey was fun. It was fun and it was rewarding, and I stay in contact with a lot of those players, all through the ranks, all the way to, I saw my son Brady played in a tournament at St. Bernard's, and I ran into a player, a former junior varsity player at North Hollywood High School, whose son is now a player at St. Bernard's.
Wow.
And he came up to me and he had to introduce himself to me because it had been 35 years. And I'm like, and it was like, oh my gosh. So, I mean, you have that network and the connectivity to the basketball world that's
awesome.
That's precious.
Yeah, no, you have a pretty basic, I won't call it a coaching tree necessarily, but every coach I know worked your camp. So at one point or another, like, oh yeah, we used to work that camp.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that. Just UCLA, like you said, you weren't, like you said, I want kids to understand this, the experience and the opportunity, right? That you didn't get to play as much as you would like, but you knew that it was worth something in the long run.
Yeah.
And where does that mindset come from to understand that at an early age? Because you're a hooper, like you could put the ball in the basket, and being able to sacrifice some of that for, kind of the long-term picture. Where does that mindset come from, and what kind of values do you have that helped you, get through that?
I think I was always realistic about being a pro player. I wanted to be a college player, but I wasn't sitting around thinking I was going to go play with Magic Johnson one day. That just, and it's not that I was selling myself short. I felt like I had my feet on the ground. That's all. And so I wanted to have the best college experience I could have. And I waited in my thinking. I'm thinking, I could go to and I don't want to mention any schools and disparage them in any way, but I could go to a smaller school out in the middle of nowhere, and I'm a California kid, an LA kid, and or I could be at UCLA. And at that time, UCLA was even, to understand that I grew up through the Wooden years and followed the Bruins through several national championships, and then became a product of his camps. Went to his camps, worked his camps, coached, counselor, the whole deal at his camps. Got to know Wooden really well, and of course he made it easy to get to know him because he was so accessible and so generous with his time that now all of a sudden somebody's giving me a ticket to play at UCLA, to put those 4 letters on my chest. Are you kidding me?
Kind of reap what you sow. You put all that work and you spent all that time. And hey.
So did I immediately say, well, I'm not going to play, I'm not going to go? Well, no. I mean, how do you do that? I mean, you can't say that. You're talking about a school that is, and still is, the king of college basketball. 11 national championships. Nobody else has got more than 7, I think. And Final Fours and all that they've done. And then the alumni base, all of which are friends of mine. I get to go to UCLA alumni reunions and look around at the Basketball Hall of Fame. Yeah. And it's interesting that some of them are unbelievable players that scored thousands of points and had tremendous NBA careers. And then there's me at the very end of the spectrum, at the very far end. But yet we're all the same now. Yeah. We're all Bruins. Yeah. We all practiced at Poly Pavilion. We all put our blood, sweat, and tears into the program. Some were rewarded because of their skill at a much higher level than I was. But at the end of the day, you ask, where did I have the value? I think I always had that value, knowing that investing in myself here, even though it didn't give me the immediate return, it would afford me a great life of connection to the greatest basketball program in college sports. So I still have that to this day, and we'll always have that. And so that's why I did it.
No, that's amazing. I love that. I love that you can see the long-term picture, even at an early age when, I wish, my hope is that kids can hear that and understand that this is bigger than basketball, like playing basketball. There's always the bigger picture of everything. So
absolutely.
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
We have to talk more your experience at John Wooden camps growing up, and then, like you said, you transitioned to a counselor and then spending time with them. So when did you start going to his camps, and how did that relationship just with him, expand over the years?
Well, as a Bruin fan, you wanted to go to the John Wooden basketball camp. It was out at Cal Lutheran in Thousand Oaks, and 400 kids, and it was absolute bedlam. And I remember when I went out there as a 12-year-old or something, and it was the first time I'd ever gone away from home without my mom and dad, and I was calling them every night for the first couple of nights, going through what normal kids go through. But then as I got more comfortable there over the course of a 5-day camp, all of a sudden I'm sitting there running the UCLA high post offense, because that's what Coach Wooden had every guy run. You enter the ball and cut off the high post, and to this day, coaches call it the UCLA cut. It is what it is. And I was doing it as a youngster at a camp. It was kind of cool. Then as I got a little bit, went to the camp a few times. As I got older, you get to be 16, 17. Now you don't go to the camp as a camper, you can go as a counselor. So I would definitely sign me up for that. Did that, loved it. Got to work with some fabulous coaches, one of which offered me a job later down the line at the junior college that I went to. Lee Smelzer out here at the College of the Canyons. They just named the floor after him out here, and very deserving. But he was a John Wooden basketball camp coach. I was a counselor, and that's how we got to know each other. Now, as you get a little bit older still, you get to be 18, 19, 20. Well, now you may get to be a coach at the camp. And with each step, you get to do more and have more responsibilities. One of the greatest responsibilities that any of us could ever have is when you were the head counselor, because you got to pick Coach Wooden up in the morning in Encino at about 6 o'clock and pick him up at his house and drive him to Thousand Oaks, just you and him.
Oh, wow.
And you spent 30 minutes sitting here talking. I got to talk to John Wooden every morning at a camp. I remember the first time I ever, sidebar story, the first time I ever did that, the night before I was going to pick him up, I'm like, okay, because I'm a Bruin fan now. Who's the greatest player, Coach? Was it Walton or was it Lou? I'm thinking, which one was it? Lou Alcindor? Okay, tell me the best team you had. The 73 team with Walton, or was it the da-da-da? I'm going through all the questions I was going to ask, right? I get into the car, and he immediately engages the conversation. I don't have a chance to get a question out. Mm-hmm. And the conversation is all about me. And I remember that first 30 minutes, I got out of the car, and I'm like, I didn't ask one question about Jabbar. I didn't ask one question about Marcus Johnson. And I had them ready to go. And but I learned something there from him, just how down to earth he was, how unpretentious that he was at all about who he was as a person. He was just a normal guy who was sitting down with somebody he didn't know very well, and I want to get to know you a little bit. Tell me what's going on. And he didn't want to sit there and hold a press conference for me in that car.
Right.
And because, not that he wouldn't have, if I asked questions, he'd answer them. But that really wasn't where his head was at. And I learned so much from him in so many ways about being humble and appreciative and thankful and on an even playing field with everybody that he dealt with. He was John Wooden, but he was John Wooden, the human being, the person. He was not this guy over here that was so bigger than life you had to be nervous to talk to him. Not at all. And he was unbelievable.
He wasn't a brand. He wasn't a...
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. That's where going to the camps, working with him, getting to know people, the network. A lot of people I still talk with. Don Showalter's the head of USA Basketball. Mm-hmm. Don Showalter's a product of the John Wooden basketball camp. I can go down the line with people that worked that camp that have gone on to be very influential and positive members of the basketball community from coast to coast and what they have done. And that's all part of my network too. It's all part of my family. So it's very, very cool. Very cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm a huge John Wooden fan, so I'm just...
we can go on and on. I could do your own podcast on him and the lessons, and everybody should read his books. His book on leadership, He really got it. He was a savant in so many ways. And I've always said he would have been an unbelievable president. He would have been a great doctor. He would have been a fabulous attorney.
He's a true leader, like the definition of a
leader.
leader.
He just, whatever he would have done, because he got it. He really got it. He understood what it took to be successful. And he created the pyramid of success because he got it. He understood the pillars. He understood the foundation. He understood the intangibles and the tangibles and all the things that were going to lead up to being at that top of the pyramid of whatever success in whatever field you're in. It wasn't just basketball. Yeah. All this applies to whatever you want to be as a person. And that's why so many people hang that pyramid of success on their wall in their office. Because if they bought in and they believe in it, it works. So,
I think he just sold a couple books. Go get you a John Wooden book, guys. That was good. That was great. Okay, transitioning into coaching. So this is where you spend the rest of your life, almost, from that moment of coaching JV. So you didn't start off on a Division I bench.
No.
You had your years of hustling, grinding, figuring it out. You had a great background. You had John Wooden as a mentor. Like you said, Don Showalter, a bunch of other coaches that you had. What would you tell the young coach, that just got done playing college ball and looking to hop into coaching?
Yeah.
What would you go back and tell your old self, or tell them now?
It was told to me, so this is not original, but learn how to teach the game. And just because you played, even if you played at a high level, even if you were a great player yourself, does that mean you can teach the game? No, it doesn't. You need to know how to communicate. Think of it this way, and it was explained to me this way. It's my responsibility as a coach, or as a teacher, if I'm sitting in front of an English class or a math class, whatever, and I'm teaching a lesson, and there's 30 kids out there. Every one of those 30 kids is going to hear my message differently. Every single one. Because they all have their own, you come from your own perception, right? Perception is reality. You're processing whatever you're seeing or hearing in your own way. So as I'm trying to reach these 30 people, how am I successfully going to be able to reach most of them the way I want to convey my message to them? You can't just throw it out there and say, well, he gets an A and he gets an F, and it's his fault. Well, the kid that got an F, it's my fault. It's not his fault. There are no bad students. There are only bad teachers. You need to know how to reach them. You need to know how to communicate to them. You need to have how do you turn on their light bulb? Yeah. And that's true in coaching too. Now I get on the floor and I got my 12 guys and I'm going to teach them defensive and offensive strategy. And I'm talking to these 12 guys. Are they all hearing me the same way? No. Where are they? What are they thinking about? What's their reality at that moment? Where is their head at? What has their parents told them that morning that might be influencing what they're thinking or how they're processing? Or what their AAU coaches told them in that morning there are so many things, we call it noise, right? There's so much noise. And you get the 12 kids in front of you, your message has to be succinct, confident, firm, held accountable. But how do you do all that?
Yes.
How do you do all? You can just say it and say, oh, I'll be that way as a coach. Well, no, you won't. Not until you learn how. And you learn how at lower levels. Teach young kids. Teach young kids. Teach 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
Then go teach, and I loved it. I've told you, I'm repeating myself, women's basketball. Unbelievable. What a great thing. Don't look down your nose at that as a male. If you have the opportunity to coach girls, go do it. It's fantastic. Then coach a little bit older kid, a little bit more accomplished kid. And you'll figure out ways that you'll tweak messages. You'll figure out ways to have that light bulb come on, even if they're 16 versus if they're 10. Yes. And then I've even had the opportunity, one more rung of my ladder. I coached professional basketball in Canada for a year. I was the general manager and head coach, and now I'm dealing with 28-year-olds who are playing for me to make a living to feed their families. So now, what's their reality? What's their perspective? And now I've got to convey my message again. Yeah. So I've now learned how to convey the message to a 10-year-old, to a 16-year-old, to a boy, to a girl, to a professional athlete. And I think you need those rungs of the ladder. I really do. I think it's, you got to be patient. You've got to appreciate the fact that there is a learning curve. And it's not all about, I'm be Division I coach. Hang on now.
Right.
Hang on. It's not like that. So, yeah.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. The focus on communication and how you, like you said, you could take somebody who's 10 all the way to an adult, explain the same game to them and connect with them. And those ways of connecting, it takes time, first off. You're not going to just walk into a room and connect with all 12 immediately, but it takes getting to know them personally, doing what John Wooden did to you. Hey, who are you?
That's right.
And finding what makes them go. And I think people just look at the basketball. It's like, oh, look at their skill set. Look how talented they are. Look how athletic they are. But not understanding what's going on the inside, like you said, the influences, the noise, and where they want to go with this. Are they playing for their parents? Are they playing for themselves? All those little internal things that we can't see because of their skill, and just suggest that they do something a certain way without that connection.
Yeah.
I think that's why we see talented guys in the NBA fall off. It's because they're not connected to the internal, what's going on inside to harness that talent.
That's right. I totally agree with you. Totally agree. You're 100% right. You know, a coach, you're so important. You're so important, but you need to be polished and ready, because your message could make or break a kid. And going back to the rungs of the ladder, appreciate the fact that your role is that significant, and allow yourself to be groomed within the system. Mm-hmm. Allow yourself the time and the opportunity at different levels with different people to have the ability to communicate the message that needs to be communicated. And if you do that and you strike the chord of a youngster, or even as a young adult, you strike that chord, you could change the direction of that person's life. And that's why you coach. To me, that's why I've always coached.
Right.
I mean, I want to be able to do something that changes the direction of a young person's life for the good. And there's nothing more rewarding.
100%. Yep. Now, moving through, so you said, junior college, when Division II, taking that jump into Division I. What was that process like? Where did that opportunity come from?
Well, junior college, I worked for Lee Smelzer at College of the Canyons, and I learned on a very small surface level the recruiting aspect of college sports. So you're out there shaking the bushes locally to try to get kids to play junior college basketball. You go to Division II, and that effort ramps up a little bit. Now, your budgets are small, so you're still regionally recruiting for the most part, unless you have a contact out beyond your means.
What Division II were you at?
I was at Quincy University in the Great Lakes Valley Conference, and that's in Illinois.
Oh, in the West.
The head coach there was Steve Hawkins, who I worked with at the John Wooden basketball camp. So he offered me a job, and now we got in the weeds a little bit, and we started putting some pieces together and recruiting players. And actually, I used all my junior college contacts out here. I got 3 or 4 players from College of the Canyons that finished up at COC, came to Quincy. 2 or 3 of them became junior or Division II All-Americans. Through that, we went to the NCAA tournament. It was fantastic. And at this time, Jim Herrick was the head coach at UCLA, and he was doing really well. And I knew now I wanted to be a Division I coach. Okay, I was doing D2, and I'm thinking, maybe I can get myself back to UCLA. But I also thought, probably not directly. So I had an opportunity to go to Cal State Fullerton. Big West Conference, lower level, perfect. Southern California, I'm out of the snow. I come back from Quincy, and I get into Fullerton for a couple of years. Well, that situation didn't go as well as I'd hoped. We weren't very good, and I did chase a job at UCLA. I didn't get it, but I got to know Coach Herrick pretty well, which was great. Proved to be a great friend and ally the rest of my career. And I later worked for him at the University of Georgia. But that opportunity to get on to UCLA didn't happen. But I wanted to go back to my alma mater. So I'm grinding, I'm staying with it. I leave Fullerton, and I want to be, I think I need to be a head coach. Now I'm like 28 or something. I said, I need to be a head coach. So I'm going to go be a junior college head coach. Well, to do that, you got to get your master's. I went to Azusa Pacific, got my master's. It was great.
Where you met DD?
That's right. That's right. She played there. It was great. And then we, from Azusa Pacific, got the master's, went to Fullerton College, worked with Dieter Horton, a great friend who'd gone on to, he won a junior college California State Championship at Antelope Valley. He's now the coach at Fullerton. We're doing that whole thing. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm getting ready to get into being a JUCO head coach. And there's a couple jobs that are popping up, blah, blah, blah. Lo and behold, Larry Farmer, who recruited me to UCLA, was at Rhode Island with Jim Herrick when they had Lamar Odom and Catino Mobley and that crew. Well, they went to the Elite Eight, lost to Stanford to go to the Final Four, and Larry Farmer got the head coaching job at Loyola Chicago. Bring. Jeff, come be my assistant coach, you know. And so now I'm thinking, all right, I've set the table to go be a junior college head coach, which I feel like I really needed to be, to put head coach on my resume. But now Larry Farmer, my college coach, is offering me to go back to Division I basketball in a good league, the Horizon League, at a good school, Loyola Chicago. So I go. And so I'm at Loyola for one season. And at the end of that season, Jim Herrick called me and offered me a job at the University of Georgia.
Wow.
So now I've gone from Loyola to Georgia, which is in the Southeastern Conference, and now my world has changed dramatically because now you've gone from being a JUCO head coach to being a mid-major coach to now I'm in the SEC, which doesn't get any higher or better than that. You know, you're getting ready to play Kentucky in conference play, and it's a game-changing deal. You're recruiting a whole different level kid.
Yeah.
You're dealing with a whole different element out there in the recruiting world, the AAU world, the handlers of some of these tremendously skilled players that are projected to be NBA players, and rightfully so. A lot of them became NBA players. Mm-hmm. And that gave me a whole, talk about an indoctrination into high major college basketball, a side that I didn't appreciate when I was at UCLA, because I wasn't recruited like Reggie Miller was. I had the cleaners.
They said the dry cleaner was your handler.
Exactly. I was not the superstar.
Yeah.
Now I was recruiting the superstar.
Yes.
Trying to get him to come to the University of Georgia, trying to get him to buy into what we were doing, Coach Herrick, our system, and people that were recruiting against us were the best of the best, Tubby Smith and Mike Krzyzewski and boom. So
is there a standard though, right? So you went through these different levels where recruitment is different from junior college to Division II to mid-major to high major. Is there a standard though across the board? If there's 3 or 4 things that like, hey, no matter where or what level you're recruiting, these are the things that have to happen.
From a coaching perspective, you're
Yes.
saying? Yeah. You know, I think one of the things I learned from my world, my mentors, was honesty. And I think that's a very skewed attribute today. I also think relationship building, which takes time and effort. I think today it's different too, but the kids live in a different world now today. Instagram and instant messaging and text messaging, that's more the way I communicate with you versus spending time with you and talking to you.
Yes.
The face-to-face has kind of gone out. So my generation was more face-to-face. I'm not coaching at the moment. If I were, I'd be right back in face-to-face.
Right.
I wouldn't be recruiting with Instagram, which may not work in my favor. I don't know. Maybe the kids really identify with an Instagram relationship more than a face-to-face relationship. But I would like to think not. I would like to think I could make more of a impression sitting down and looking you in the eye and talking to you. You know, so that would be, so that's a constant.
I think that'll help you stand out, right? I think there's, like you said, there is a generation of the digital, right? The digital recruiter, but I think this is never going to go away, right? Breaking bread with somebody, eating and talking and just, getting to know someone will never, I don't think there's a better way to build a relationship.
That's right.
So,
I've talked to you about my son's recruitment, and I've learned so much now seeing him go through it. So you talk about constants. I would be so honest with parents as well, Because now, as a parent of a kid and going through the process, there were certain things that were sold to me that you didn't need to try to sell me on some of that stuff.
Right.
You needed to,
Especially you knowing the game, right? Like,
but they didn't know that themselves.
ah,
You know, they should have.
I
But
say all you gotta do is Google you.
they are, but yeah, but they weren't as well versed as they should have been to know what probably would have been important to me.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's what's your message? What do you need to tell the parents truthfully, not BS? I'm not talking about giving the parents some spin that you think that, no. What do you think parents need to hear? Understand the connectivity to the parents, to the kids, to them being a part of that child's life, even as they become young adults into the collegiate world. Because they're still going to be very much a part of it. They're not married and off and on their way. They're still part of the family unit as a boy. Like, I still look at my son as a boy. He's still a boy to me. He's a little boy. Is he really in terms of chronological? No, he's not 14.
Right.
But understand where the parents at, and then that might help me feel more comfortable about if I'm sending him away.
Yes.
Or putting more value on some of the other things to maybe keep him closer, you know. And again, if you're recruiting, if I'm recruiting a kid who is not from the area, and I'm asking him to go a distance away from home, I'm going to address a lot of things differently than I did before. Like, I didn't understand that. I didn't appreciate it enough 20 years ago when I was doing it, what I appreciate now. And there were certain things, there were certain schools that really wanted my kid. Had they hit some of those buttons now, as I look at it in retrospect, Brady might have gone there.
Yeah.
So that's what's in play.
But you guys sent him 3,000 miles.
We
away
did.
to
We
the
wanted to
cold.
make sure he went as far away as possible.
No, that's awesome. No, I think that's very informative for the coaches coming up, but more importantly for the parents as well, to understand what to look for from the coaches.
Yes.
Right? That personal touch to truly understanding the kid and their family and
Yes.
their parents and what's important.
You're absolutely right. And I don't know if there's enough coaches out there, or at least some, there's a percentage of coaches out there that really appreciate that. They just think I'm going to tell you I'm from Pisby Switch University and you're supposed to light up like a Christmas tree. Well, hang on a second. Not sure Pisby Switch University is the one that fits.
Yeah.
But I'm going to try to convince you that it is. But I'm going to convince you with this.
Yes.
And that's what needs to be more appreciated.
100%. All right, going to the SEC, Georgia. Like you said, your recruitment switches on. What's the first thing you do getting there?
I think the first thing we did, well, I mean, there's a lot of things. It's a loaded question because we were at a football school for one. I went on to do the same thing at Alabama, and I was more equipped when I went to the University of Alabama because that's another football school. But we wanted to sell the brand of Georgia as a complete athletic school. I thought that was really important. So that was one of our first intentions, branding Georgia basketball. We actually created its own little logo with the G and the basketball behind it. We wanted it to be separate than just the G because the G itself meant football.
Representing football,
Yeah.
yes.
So we did some little things like that. We had to, again, every situation is different, but Athens, Georgia is arguably one of the top 1, 2, 3 college towns in the country. Got to sell that to the kids. Sometimes kids don't really understand. They get the blinders on that it's all about basketball when I needed to show them and their parents it's the college experience. It's all about basketball on the front end. That's what's making your decision for you. You know, you're deciding where to go because you're excited because you want to go play there. But once you're there, now you're living the college experience.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you about that college experience. I want to show you what your life is going to be like Monday through Friday. Going to class, going downtown, having places to eat, boom, 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 boom. You gotta put all that together. So we really we strategized how to sell Georgia, how to entice Georgia, how to entice a recruit to consider Georgia when he's also considering the likes of Florida and Kentucky and Ole Miss and LSU and all the schools that we were dealing with in that league. And it was important that they just didn't see Georgia as a football school, because that worked against us.
Yeah.
Same with Alabama, and we were even more equipped when I went into Alabama to fight that stigmatism a little bit. You also, the single most important ingredient in the recruiting process is the head coach, 100%. Now, Jim Herrick had won a national championship at UCLA and taken 3 or 4 different schools to the NCAA tournament. Really sold him hard. Plus, he was a fabulous recruiter. Great, humble, nice, West Virginia guy who could talk to anybody. Yeah. And if we could put him down and if we could get him in a home and sit down with parents and a kid, we had a heck of a chance of getting the kid. So know your strengths, know what you're selling, market it the right way. Yeah. And that was of the first things, those were the first things that we put in motion as we started to get Georgia up to speed. Today's generation would be different, because now you'd be thinking portal and who can I get to do this or that, or how much NIL money, got to get the money together. It's like it changes, the game changes today. I get it. But still, I think some of the base root foundation of the message of what is still there, needs to be there.
I like the marketing. That's the first time I've heard that word based around recruiting, but I think that's the key, is that you're running a business essentially. So
100%.
The marketing around that, like you said, you created your own logo and branding for the basketball program. Is how Duke calls it the brotherhood, how,
that's right.
All those little details build up the reputation of your program.
That's right.
That's awesome.
100%.
Some of the better players that you recruited to Georgia and Alabama during that. So Alabama was right after Georgia? Or
Alabama, no, I went Georgia to Western Michigan, because that's where Steve Hawkins had gone to. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Alabama, then to North Carolina State, and then, it seems like.
All right, so next up was, so Georgia, some of the better recruits at Georgia.
No, we get the Hayes twins were the most noted. Jarvis Hayes was the 9th pick in the NBA draft, and whatever year that was that he came out. His brother Jonas Hayes, who's now a Division I coach at Georgia State, was a tremendous player at that time too. Yeah. We had Dominic Wilkins' nephew, Gerald Wilkins' son, both, of course, Gerald played in the NBA too. Damian Wilkins, who went on to play, I want to say 11, 12 years in the NBA, long time, was a great utility player in the NBA. And he had a nice career for us. We were getting ready to get Josh Smith, who went on to play in the NBA. Right when we got fired, we had the table set to get 3 or 4 more that were lined up. We'd recruited the heck out of Dwight Howard. He was part of the Atlanta Celtics AAU program, and we were recruiting a lot of them from that world, and had all that come together, and some of those pieces come together. I don't know where Georgia basketball would be today. Might have been significantly even more established than they are today, but had the wheels went off the road there a little bit at Georgia, sadly, and for Coach Herrick in particular, because that could have been another staple for him in his career, maybe the ticket to the Basketball Hall of Fame. He was that good of a coach, is still that good of a coach.
I watched practice when you guys were over at CSUN, and the fundamentals, like you said, communication and the accountability and all that, you see that he brought still, and it's like, man, that is basketball.
Yeah. No, it's pure. Yeah. And he got it from Wooden too. He'll tell you that too. Yeah. It's not the only way to play, just the best. Is what he would tell you.
I like that. So moving on to Western Michigan, it was the next destination. So going back to mid-major, did anything change, or did you still have kind of a high major recruiting?
Well, we weren't on charter planes anymore. We had to downshift a little bit. No, but it was great. Western Michigan it's a great situation. Midwest is fabulous for basketball. It's a little cold there, Kalamazoo, Michigan, but I really enjoyed it. I had 3 good years there. And I'm working with my best friend, one of my best friends, Steve Hawkins, who did a great job, had a nice career there, a long career. And the only reason why I went out of there when things were good was, financially, you make high major basketball, you're going to make more money. So there is that. And I wanted to be a head coach. And being a high major assistant, it might get you into that catbird seat to become a head coach. So boom, 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 I bounced. But no, really good situation. Had some really good players. The most noted player, Joe Wrights, who was 2 or 3 time All-MAC, led the league in all kinds of categories, and went on to play in the NFL. He was a 6'7", 6'8" power forward for us, who was a great high school football player, forewent playing football in college, and just played basketball. But the scouts remembered him from high school. And when he graduated as a senior at Western Michigan, they invited him as a free agent to come back and try your hand at your old sport, football. He was on the practice squad for 2 or 3 years, ended up playing another 6 or 7 years with the Indianapolis Colts. He was there with Andrew Luck as their left tackle on the offensive line, and had a great career.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's so crazy.
You never know.
Stop playing the sport completely and still, hey, come to the NFL.
Yeah, come try the NFL. Yeah.
All right, then you transitioned to Alabama, and that's where you start. It was Gottfried there?
Gottfried was there,
Okay.
but Mark had been an assistant for Jim at UCLA when they won the national championship. So it's all part of the family. Mm-hmm. Got a chance to work with, and Tom Asbury was at that time too, and he had been the head coach at Pepperdine and was Jim Herrick's assistant at Pepperdine when Herrick was at Pepperdine. Anyway, so there's your family.
Yeah.
Worked with Mark, and I was getting toward the end of Mark's time there. He had done really well. I'd taken them all the way to being number 1 in the country at one point. Took them to the Elite 8, and they lost to a very good UConn team. And so I was excited to be back at that level. But then when I got there, our talent fell off. Our best player was Alonzo G, who went on to play in the NBA. But we just didn't have enough. Ron Steele was our point guard. He was a great point guard. Could have been an NBA player. Had all kinds of medical issues and problems with his knees. Very sad for him. Hurt us badly too as a team. We never really recovered, and Mark lost his job there. When I lost my job there, I went back to Western Michigan for 1 year.
Okay.
Coach Hawkins, one of the greatest saves of anybody to offer me a job back. Also, a little feather in my cap to be wanted back. Right. And thankfully he had an opening. Went back to Western Michigan for 1 year. Mark Gottfried got back in the profession after a year off as the head coach at North Carolina State. In fact, he asked me to come back down there, so I went back down there. Now I'm in the ACC. So, yeah, crazy. If you want to be, you're a gypsy at heart. If you want to be a college basketball coach.
I would say
you better have.
Did you have kids at this time?
We had. I've moved 2 times when both my kids were 9 days old. I was at Western Michigan when Brady was born, and 9 days later, I left Western Michigan for Alabama. Lost my job at Alabama. Went back to Western Michigan, and my daughter was 9 days old. Wow. And so, yeah, we did that twice. I think that's right. I might be wrong. Maybe we left Western Michigan for Alabama with Brooklyn. Anyway, whatever it was, it was a wild time. And you better have a spouse now.
Yeah.
You better have an all-American coach's wife. Oh my goodness, somebody who understands the profession, understands the volatility and the instability, but can roll with it without too much drama, and packing up and rolling and knowing that all the while you're going to probably be doing it by yourself because your spouse is working. I mean, he's just gotten a new job. You're on the move and there's a new job, and I'm out trying to get players, and boom, boom, boom. So, yeah.
Yes. No, I had David Grace here on the last episode, and he asked me that question. Was like, would you want to be a college coach? Absolutely not.
Yeah. It's another.
No, my wife. I don't think my wife is built for that. I'm not built for that kind of life.
It's hard.
The airplanes, the moving, even during the season, just changing a job is one thing and moving your family, but also during the season, just the scouting and the recruiting and it's pretty brutal. But
it's a hard grind, and you do it if you do it for a long time, which I've done it for a long time. It makes me think, golly, do I want to get back into it? I've kind of done it, and it's, if you get to be a head coach, the pressure on you becomes insurmountable because you're hired to be fired. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. You're a paid assassin. And if it works out and you win and you can make a lot of money, great. But if you have a couple of bad years and you stumble, you're going to be out. And then what? Yeah. And a lot of times it's really hard as a head coach, if you're fired as a head coach, to go back as an assistant, because they don't want to hire you back because you've been a head coach. And now you think like, now you're wired.
Qualified for the
job.
job.
Now you think like a head coach. Now your workload is like a head coach. And now you want to come back and be an assistant? We don't want you. Wow. So, yeah, I've always said it's a really hard profession to get into. You want to be a college basketball coach? It's really hard. Yeah. It's even harder to stay in. Once you get in, you get your foot in the door. But you want to stay in it? Now you got to win. You got to stay one step ahead of the sword. You got to produce, and you are being judged on every single game. So to stay in is really, really hard. To get out and get back in, virtually impossible. Because I think once it spits you out, the recovery rate, not very high. Wow. We just keep cycling up the next generation. And it's almost like, okay, you had your at-bat. See ya. And so it's do you want to embark on that life? Because that's going to be your life. Really hard, even harder, nearly impossible. You want that? Some people do. It's in their blood, you know. Yeah. And it was in my blood, you know, it was. So it's all good.
Sound like then you guys went to North Carolina State, kind of found a home there.
Yeah.
There for 6 years.
Yeah.
Really developed that program, had some very high level players.
Yes.
And so what was that overall experience like, just being in North Carolina?
I don't know if there's a better basketball area to have. You're right there, Duke, Carolina, NC State, they're all within 15 minutes of each other. Chapel Hill to Raleigh to, you know, it's all right there. And then not too far away is Wake Forest. You know, they're hour and a half, hour and 45. And then the ACC and what it represents. It's kind of the founding conference of college basketball. Okay. It's if you go back to the history of North Carolina basketball and the South, you go down into the South, which Kentucky's a part of, and their SEC and whatnot. But the Southeast is kind of where it's kind of the people that are involved with the SEC and the ACC are people that you think of like Chuck Taylors and whatnot. You know, well, Chuck Taylor was a person. And Chuck Taylor was in North Carolina. And a lot of that stuff, you don't realize the history of the people that are kind of the early founding fathers and members of college basketball. And they're all down there. And so each one of those schools has so much history. Yeah. And it's fun to go play the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. It's unbelievable, you know, to go do something like that. Or to go play University of Kentucky in Lexington. And again, the history, and Louisville, University, you know, where you're right there. Of course, they're not far from each other, but you're right there in Cincinnati. Anyway, we can go on and on and on. And so it was fun to be down there. And then NC State's history is fantastic. You go back to even before Jimmy Valvano. You go way back to the early rivalries of NC State and North Carolina. And, you know, basketball hasn't been around for 1,000 years. It's not like it's been that long. Basketball's been around really for 100 years, or you know, in some cases even a little less than that. Right. But you go back to those roots, and they're much more there than they are in Los Angeles, California, or Phoenix, Arizona, or you know, Seattle, Washington. We all came later. Those schools were all founded late 1700s, mid 1800s. Basketball came around late 1800s, early 1900s, and you know, it's different. So
no, it's interesting you say that. Like, to think that I've been a part of basketball for 1/6 of its existence. Oh, it's pretty amazing.
That's right.
Hey, this is a young sport. Like,
it is.
I've been doing it for a long time compared to the big picture. It feels longer because of all the, like, you know, all the clips and all that good stuff. But that's very interesting. So now you have kids growing up, right? What is that like, raising a young Brady? We'll focus on Brady because he's, you know, doing it in college now, playing college ball. What does it look like developing a Division I athlete?
Well, I wanted to first his drive to be a player had to be his drive, not mine. Now, obviously, he had exposure to my world, which, any young kid's exposed to his father's world, it can be bigger than life. But he had to want to come. Like I told him, anytime you want to come to the practice facility and work out with me, come on, I'll work you out. But you're coming. You're making that. I'm not telling you to come. And there were days he'd come and there were days he wouldn't come, and that was fine with me. He'd be playing baseball or football or other things, and that was cool. I loved going and watching him play sports that were not my sport. It was harder on me to watch him play my sport.
Right.
So I was not hell-bent on him playing basketball, but he was good. Mm-hmm. And I could see that he was good. He had great feet, which is a big deal in scouting for me. Speed and quickness with your feet. Can you run and can you move?
So what do you look for specifically when you talk about that? I'll always tell people that when I can recognize somebody who has a lot of potential, I'm like, hey, it's how they're moving is how I say it, their feet. So what do you look for specifically?
Well, first thing is speed. I saw it when Brady was 5 years old and playing soccer. He'd run past people on the soccer field. He'd just, and be like, okay, check that box, I watched him play football and quarterback, and you couldn't catch him. He was elusive. He'd go back and move around, and when he decided to run upfield, secondaries couldn't catch him. So that made me know I had speed. He had speed. Next thing is quickness. That's just a fast twitch, the shiftiness, the being able to change direction quickly, and he had that. He had it. I could really see it in basketball because that's where you have the most shiftiness. But I saw it a little bit in football and baseball too. He could run the bases like the wind and change direction really fast. I saw him one time round first base and stop and realize he had to get back to first, and he slammed on the brakes and turned and went back to first, and I saw something that was unlike anybody else that was on the diamond. You could see what God had given him. It was nothing that had been trained in him from me.
So that's what I was going to ask. Was this developed or was this
This was, thank goodness, he was in line for that gene when it was being passed down, and that's part of it. Now you can train things, sure, and you should. As Brady got older, he'd do ladder work and he'd do a lot of jump rope, and I conditioned and trained and developed fast twitch, but it was already there.
Yeah.
I just made it stronger and faster,
right.
And he continues to make it stronger and faster. But those would be, that's the first thing that I knew, okay, I got a player. Does that mean I got a Division I player? Well, no, it just means I got a player. We'll start with that. Now, as he wanted to start coming and working out, now we started working on the fundamentals. And he'd ball handle and dribble up 3 steps, jump stop. And that's boring as heck for a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old. And he's like looking at me like, why am I doing this? And I'm like, you're learning. You're going to learn footwork. You're going to learn pivoting. You're going to understand how to hold the ball.
Yes.
You're going to hold the ball under your chin, against your chest with your elbows out. And you're going to be strong, and this is where it's going to be. It's not going to be out here. It's not going to be up here. It's not going to be anywhere anybody can take it from you.
Yes.
And so all that was conditioned in him young. And then if he hated it that day and the next day he's like, Dad, I'm not coming to work out today, I'd be like, that's fine. Don't come. Because if you're going to come, you're going to learn to play this way.
Yep.
And my wife used to say to him, don't waste Dad's time. That was her message. She used to tell me that was her message. She'd be like, if you're going to go work out with your father, you're going to give him everything you got. And if you're not, don't go. Because he's too busy. He's got too much going on. He's coaching a team. He doesn't have time for you to come in and lollygag. So when Brady came in to work out with me, no matter what age, he was full go. He didn't know it, and that was my wife conditioning him to be that way.
Yeah.
So now you're establishing work ethic. You're establishing you know that he's got speed and quickness. Now you're introducing fundamentals, and you're bringing him up slowly but surely through the ranks. We didn't go out and shoot 3-pointers the first time he was in the gym. No. Be realistic and be smart about what you're doing and what you're training, and how. And I understand a lot of most dads aren't college coaches.
Right.
I get it. So, so what is your message as a parent? And who are you going to entrust your son or daughter to do it? Because it's not you. you're an attorney or a doctor or something else, Doesn't mean you don't love your kid, doesn't mean you're not a basketball fan. But a basketball fan probably can't teach basketball.
Right.
And understand that. Even when you're sitting in the stands and you're watching your son play, you're a fan. You're not a coach. And entrust your kid to a coach and let the coach teach, let the coach criticize, let the coach constructively put things in place to make an improvement plan for your child. No matter if they're 10 years old or 21 years old. Yes. Because that's, getting that message from a coach to me is way more important than getting it from a dad. Unless, and I know I'm in a different category, because my message to Brady, he respects me as a coach, because I am one. Yes. So I'm a little different. I totally get it. But in most cases, that's not the case.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
No, and I thank you for that clarity, because I think that's amazing, that separation of understanding being a fan of basketball versus being a coach of basketball. And that's where a lot of parents get confused. It's like, oh, I know this. I know the triangle offense because I watched it. Yeah, you're not actually a teacher, which we talked about earlier. Become a teacher of the game. And I always tell parents, we don't step into your field of work and tell you how to do your job. Right. So please allow the experts, be the experts, and trust that person. And so if you don't trust that person and you're feeling like you have to coach because of whatever that coach is teaching, get them out of that environment then.
That's right.
It's okay to go somewhere else with it.
Oh, no, 100%.
And giving them the formula, the blueprint to doing it. Like, you gave away some golden nuggets, and if somebody's listening, literally those 3 things that you just said are golden, right? Make sure they have he has the work ethic, athleticism and skill, and some God-given ability for it, and then the fundamentals.
Yep.
Like, just start there.
Yep.
And don't start there, just do that.
Right.
Do that for the duration
right.
of their basketball career and see how far they go.
That's right.
And don't, those aren't things you grow out of ever. The fundamentals are not something you grow out of. You have to do them every day. LeBron James works on his fundamentals, I promise you, right? Like, these are the things that
every
take
day.
You a long
That's
way.
right. That's so. What, nothing changes from what you teach an 8-year-old to a 28-year-old. Nothing changes.
Yes.
It's not like all of a sudden the game's more advanced, so now we don't do this anymore. Now we do this whole new thing. No, you don't.
Right.
It's all the same.
Yeah.
So
transitioning from North Carolina, coming to California, and moving back to the West Coast, kind of back home for you in your old backyard. What was that like? Brady about to go to high school, around the age of middle school, going to high school.
Yeah.
Your daughter going into middle school or elementary.
Into last year of elementary.
Last year, so they're both in this transition period. So it's always, it's always tough moving, but not a bad time to move as they transition into these next, the next parts of their lives. So what was that experience like? And, leading up to where we are now,
Well, I was coming here out of Canada, and I was in Newfoundland, Canada, and so that's the top of the world up there, and it was a different way of life, and it was exciting, and I loved it, but I didn't take my family up there with me. I let them finish school in North Carolina, and we were still trying to find my way. Didn't know if I was going to get back into college coaching, whatever. Mark Gottfried got another job at Cal State Northridge right here, offered me a job to come back, and I took it because even though I was a head coach up in Canada, I needed to come back for Brady and my daughter. But it was a critical time for Brady as an athlete, as an 8th grader. Mm-hmm. And when we got here, Brady was he was basketball and football, but he was equal. I mean, he loved football now, and he was a really good quarterback. And we were trying to figure out what to do with him. By the time we got back here, it was too late. He had missed spring football. And we were like, doggone it, because now he was like, well, maybe I won't play. Well, we want you to play the whole thing. And then the core came along as an option. And the core was a fantastic thing with all of your guidance and help. The core was a fantastic thing because not only does it really help boys to get an extra year of age, like even to this day, Brady's still the skinniest player on the floor as a freshman in college. He needs that time. Boys particularly need that time. But for Brady, in this case, not only did he need the time to maybe gain another pound or two, he also, by going to the core and reclassing, it allowed him to have the normal football progression into that next year at Hart High School. And he wanted that because he wanted to play football. So now Brady's here. He does spring football. He does the workouts. We've been here a year, and now he can go do his football thing and basketball thing at Hart. Great. I go to Cal State Northridge, and we start to try to turn a program around that has never really had much success at all. And it's a very difficult school to work at because they just don't really understand college athletics.
Yeah.
And they're not really that interested in finding out more about it. It's not where their head's at. A matter of fact, I'm glad they're doing pretty well this year.
Yes,
The coach is doing a good
Coach
job.
is
And
doing
it's
well.
nice, and I think it's a new wave now versus when we were there. We have the portal. He's gotten 3 or 4 kids out of the portal.
Yeah,
That really,
LA kids too, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Just for the area, we always talk about how come CSUN's not getting LA kids.
Right.
And so being able to do that is cool too.
No, it's great, and I'm happy for them and all that stuff. But anyway, I'm there. I'm doing that. Brady's doing his thing. My daughter's in the middle in a elementary school setting, getting ready to go into her step into or elementary school to go into middle school.
Yep.
And then all hell breaks loose with COVID and everything else, and it just changed Brady's course. It changed Brooklyn's course. Changed my course. Because now we had a pretty good team at Northridge. We thought we had a team that could even go to the tournament. And they shut down the tournament that year, 2020 or whatever it was, and no more basketball. And that hurt us. Brady was going to play football that next year as a sophomore, and they shut down high school football. Brooklyn is going to a middle school where now they were doing everything, don't come to campus, do everything online. So now she doesn't have any of the how vital is the social aspect of middle school?
It is.
And she lost all of that for that year. COVID was a devastating thing for children, and enough said on that. That's a whole other topic. But it kind of stumbled and bumbled us through that next phase. A year later, we come out of that. Things go sideways at Northridge. I lose my job there. Brady leaves Hart High School and goes to Harvard Westlake. And he does that for 2 reasons. A, yes, basketball was great at Harvard Westlake. We knew the coach there. It was a better situation than what Hart was. And then also academically, Harvard Westlake is off the charts. And getting that network behind Brady meant a lot to us. His alumni network at Harvard Westlake may be better than it is at St. John's at the end of the day, in terms of what those people, if you're part of that Harvard Westlake family, what that might mean to Brady in his life.
Yes.
So now he's there. He's deciding as a junior, now that things are calming down with COVID, do I want to play football? Well, he's being recruited by high major Division I schools in basketball. And I'm like, Brady, you can play football, but don't let somebody chop your knees out or do something when you're sitting here with offers to play another sport that you love. So Brady decided not to play football. Goes on at Harvard Westlake to win a state championship in the open division, which was fantastic. They've got a great team again this year. So he was part of a really good basketball factory, but it's not really a factory. That's more an academic school, but a really good basketball situation, So that worked out. My daughter played volleyball at Hart. Things calmed down there, so things are good there. I am the one that's on the lone soldier out here, is yet to kind of figure out what I want to do. I've been out of coaching now for a couple of years. And the reason I'm not hell-bent on getting back in is I want to see Brady play.
Yeah.
And so I saw every Harvard Westlake game, and they're traveling all over the place last year. They go on to win the state. Fantastic. And now I'm flying back and forth to New York to see Brady play in the Big East, which is fantastic. If I was coaching a team right now, I wouldn't be able to do any of that.
Right.
You
You get to enjoy your son. You get to enjoy being a
Right.
dad for maybe the first time you're already a
Right.
dad, but to be there present to see all of this
That's right.
at an important time in Brady's life. And so that's amazing.
And it's fantastic.
It's worked this way.
It
It's
is.
worked out.
It did work out. It's a silver lining. And I don't think I can just retire and never work again. I just have to figure out what's the right fit that's going to allow me to work a little bit, give back to the game, because I still want it to be in basketball, make enough money to just be comfortable, and then see him play. Right. That's perfect case scenario. And I'm still working through that to find that. But all is good. All is good.
No, that's awesome. It's cool to see how things work out in the timing of everything, right? I know you were thinking about this time, and when you were a coach, it's like, what am I going to do when Brady's in high school and college?
I'm not going to see him play.
You got to where you're working in your SC Sun where travel's not as crazy as it is in other conferences, and getting to see him in high school, and then just being able to be there. And
that's right, and it's fantastic. It's nothing like it as a dad. There's nothing like it, and I wish I wasn't a coach sometimes, because I see him do things and I'm like, oh. And I wish I didn't know the game like that.
Yeah.
And it's fun to watch Coach Pitino coach him, because I think he's fabulous. I really do. I think he's fabulous. But boy, he nailed. Brady got pulled out of a game the other day 2 times for 2 things that I would have pulled him out too. It would just drove me batty. But to the average fan, they would not have seen it.
Would he not jump to the ball, or what?
He actually ran back on defense one time. There was a long pass, and he was sprinting back. And when he sprinted back, the guy caught the ball, and it was really a kind of a one-on-one situation. But Brady didn't tear down and get the guy. He just ran. The guy caught it and went around him and scored. And it looked like Brady gave up on the play. And that's exactly what Pitino told him. It's like, dude, you're running back to stop the ball. You're not just running back. And he was right. Boom, he came out for that. And then there was another time the point guard made a pass to him coming up at the wing to get open. Simple play. You think just an entry pass. The pass was a little soft, and I'm sure the point guard got the turnover. But it was Brady's turnover.
He didn't meet the pass.
He didn't come meet the pass. And at any level of basketball, that's one of the most critical things in offense is the entry pass. And you better come meet it with some vigor to make sure that defender can't get a hand in there and poke it away and get to the other end, pick 6. Sure enough, Brady came soft, and pick 6, they scored a layup. Yeah. And Pitino so I love that kind of stuff, because that's what changes a game. Yeah. That's what impacts the outcome of a game. It's things like that. Everybody thinks, well, did I score 20 points or did I? How about did you come back and meet the ball?
Yeah.
How about did you get the offense started by receiving the entry pass?
Yeah.
And that's seeing the game as a coach. And that's sometimes I wish I wasn't.
No, the passion started coming out. I feel like I'm in the game. Like, I can't drop this pass.
Right.
I can't drop this pass.
Right.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to transition into our next segment. Thank you for everything that you shared. We can sit here and talk for hours. So this is part 1 of the Jeff Dunlap. There's going to be another one for sure.
Good.
So my Rushmore, okay? It's going to be a Mount Rushmore. Your top 4 arenas to play in.
Oh my gosh.
All time. This could be, we're doing straight college or college. We do college and NBA. Don't know how many NBA arenas you've been to.
Yeah, I've been to a few. The one that took my breath away the first time I was there was Rupp Arena in Kentucky. It's a cathedral. It's going to church on Sunday. It's one of the loudest buildings I've ever been in. And we beat them there one time, and I have a distinct memory of that noise level being incredible, and we beat them, and it was like you threw a switch, like boom, it was gone. Like it was a silent building as everybody walked out of it. But the energy level before that was at a fever pitch, because it was a very close game. It came down to but Rupp Arena is really something else. As a player, I remember the McHale Center at Arizona. When they had Steve Kerr at that time and Sean Elliott and some tremendous players. And boy, when they went, Steve Kerr, after he hit a 3, I mean, it was loud. It blew the top off the building. It was whatever amount of people, 15,000 people screaming at the top of their lungs and chanting names of players. And boy, Lute Olson had that place rocking. And it was an incredible environment to sit in and be in as a player. For me, I just remember taking that all in. Cameron Indoor Arena, obviously in the ACC, it is really something to behold. That student section being right on top of you. There's no student section that I can think of where they empty one whole side from baseline to baseline and all the way through that, through half court, from baseline to baseline, and you are all the way up on the floor. So those seats are so prime time where you could sell those tickets. If you made those general admission season ticket holder tickets, they'd be worth millions. But what Duke has done is they've said, no, this is the student section. And they come, the Cameron crazies, they come dressed and they're pointing at you when you're inbounding the ball on the sideline. Oh, I'm like, I was sat there as a coach thinking, if I was a player, I don't know if I could handle this. I mean, it was really something to behold. The Dean Dome, obviously this and that. I'm going to go to where Brady's playing right now, Madison Square Garden. It's not a collegiate arena per se. It's not Cameron Indoor, but it's MSG. Yeah. It's New York City. It's special. It's really special, boy. And you go into this building that just had $1 billion renovation. It's absolutely spectacular. There's a ring of honor that goes around MSG that honors the biggest and most epic event on that date or on that day of every day of the year. So like the most significant thing that ever happened on January 16th. It didn't matter what year it was. January 16th, pick the year, but it was the Pope that was there. It was Frank Sinatra that was there. It was Muhammad Ali, or as you go around, you realize what has played at the Garden. And it's all walks of life, and it's the biggest and brightest of any walk of life that you could ever imagine. So there is something really, really special about MSG. And to think that's the home court of the St. John's Red Storm, it's pretty exciting for Brady to be playing in
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to do I usually do my own, but I don't think, mine would be like, all right, so I'll give some. I don't think I have 4. But University of Texas, their new stadium they just built is amazing.
Okay.
Every seat feels like a close seat in there. And their fans are pretty committed to the process as well. And gets loud in there. And the seats are comfortable. See, when you go to the Staples Center, I still call it Staple. I know it's crypto now. The seats get a little bit tight in some places. But there, every seat's pretty comfortable. So I like that place. I think I'm going to stop there. I can't compete with
oh, yes, you can. Yeah.
No.
Yes,
mine would be like, Pepperdine, and like I haven't been to a lot of college arenas actually. At the old Poly Pavilion. I think it's just nostalgic.
I agree.
Yeah, I just think it's nostalgic. Just the
banners up there just are breathtaking.
Yeah. And New Poly, is nice as well. It's just the old one it has that. I don't know. It has a basketball feeling that I don't know.
No, I'm with you. Yeah. Hey, listen, we could go down the line. I mean, there's so many great places to play, and I could still off the top. It's not even worth mentioning. But I think the thing that makes a building is the fans. Yeah. It's the people. Yeah, it's success, but the fans are part of the success because they have helped push that team to great heights. And so. You could go throughout not just the big conferences. There's some mid-major places that are if the fan base is united and they're behind it and they're into it, and that's something for kids to consider in the recruiting process. Yes. And sometimes kids don't think that way, but
school culture.
Yes, I mean, are they really behind you? Are they really into it? Is this a place that you're going to get excited to run out there because they're going to go bananas? And if that's important, if that's your ingredient, then you have to look for that at every school. Yeah. And some schools are football schools. Some schools are whatever. Yeah. And maybe their basketball program is only supported for a big game once in a while. Or maybe they're Johnny-come-latelys, versus a place like Kentucky or McHale Center, like the ones that I've mentioned where all they do is sell out, and that's all they've ever done for 50 years. They don't know anything but. Yeah. And that kind of interest in a program, if that's one of your, make sure you check that box if that's one of your ingredients.
100%. I love that. All right, so this is the part it's called Fix the Net. Okay?
Okay.
A misconception about yourself or about basketball that you want to clear up to the people and fix the net.
Okay. Can I slam it?
You got to tell me the misconception first and make sure you can fix the net.
I think one of the things that I have tried to help parents understand is that playing basketball at any level beyond CYO basketball or ARC basketball or whatever, if all of a sudden now you can play in high school and you're on the varsity, oh my gosh, you're a heck of a player. So let's applaud that, okay? If you can play basketball beyond high school, you are a hell of a player. You're going to tell me that you can now play as a 19-year-old against other men at 19, 20, 21 years old? I haven't talked about levels.
Yeah.
I've just talked about being able to play, period. So my slamming misconception, it's not all about Division I basketball. And yet we're hung up on it. It can be the goal. Yes. As a coach, it was a goal to be a Division I coach.
Right.
Yeah. Because I understand that's the top shelf. But I just want, parents ask me, he's a Division I player. Who's recruiting him? Well, Division II school. I don't want to go there. Hold on now. Hold on. Because if they're getting offers to play Division III or Division II or whatever level of Division I, it doesn't have to be high major. It's not like if you don't reach that, you're not successful. You're very successful. If you have a chance to go to college for free, seriously, you understand what that means?
Yeah.
So, again, misconception that somehow you're not successful if you're not being recruited to play in the ACC or the Big East or the Big Ten. Come on now. Come on. Appreciate the level you're at. Appreciate what you've done as a player. Embrace it and go tackle it and be a star. Be a star.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
All right, fixed that. Love it. Thank you. And this is a part of the interview. We flipped the script. You are now the interviewer. I'm the interviewee. 2 questions for me could be about anything in the world.
I would like to ask you, having gone through your program and seen all the different kinds of kids that you've dealt with, and I say that in terms of high level prospects, kids that have the dream, but you can kind of see that cards may not have been dealt in their favor, or the kids that know they don't have it at all, but the parents are pushing it. And maybe the kid doesn't even want it, but the parents are pushing it. So how are you dealing with that, navigating that, from a standpoint of the array of different levels of commitment, talent, commitment, devotion to the sport, passion? Anyway, yeah.
I deal with the range of talent, skill, and I guess commitment is through education. I educate my parents. I tell them what's real. I have this show because I want to give them the information, what's real from people who've done it. So I'm just very, very honest. I don't care if they don't like me because I'm here for their kid. I respect and honor every parent that comes through, and I hear them, and I will do anything in my power to get them close to their child's dreams, not their dreams. And
Yes.
I have hard conversations and just let them know. And then for the kid though, I think in middle school, I think I could take any kid and get them to play, like you said, solid level of basketball. High school for sure. I could get you to play high school basketball somewhere. No, I was going to be at the Harvard Westlake or the Sierra Canyon. I could get you to play basketball somewhere at your level and give you the tools you need to develop, to get better every single day. And I think if you have those things, then you're giving them the blueprint to life, not just for basketball. It's, hey, if I work hard at something and I do these things every single day, then I'll be able to my goal is to be in the NBA. Never made it to the NBA, but I work with NBA players. Like, I let my work ethic and my love for this game take me somewhere where I thought I would never be. And so give them that viewpoint, the long-term view of this is the truth. This is how you can get here, but this is where it's actually leading you. This is what it's actually about. So Just keep it real with them.
And if it were not basketball, if you were doing it through any other vehicle, what would it be?
I would probably just be I guess like a life coach. Just help. Like I love people getting, reaching their full potential. I love making people better. I do it in every walk of life. It might be, so it's, I'm gonna say life coaching, but it'd probably be marriage counseling, very more specifically.
Yeah.
Me and my wife do marriage counseling now for people, and one of my most favorite things to do. I love love, but I also love like people understanding what a relationship is and what marriage is and what it's not.
Yeah.
And filling in those gaps and holes, and people understanding themselves to improve themselves so they can be good in any relationship they're in. And so I try to take people and give them somebody gave me a blueprint. Like it's Jalen Clark that was at UCLA, right? Recently got drafted. He's recovering from injury. His father. So I went to school with his older son, or his oldest son, I should say. We went to high school together. And he one day gave me, it was Earl Nightingale's The Greatest Secret. The Secret to Success thing. It's like a 30-minute thing where he's just speaking. Earl Nightingale's a motivational speaker he's like one of the original ones on radio. And he gave me that, and he told me to listen to this for 30 days. Don't listen to anything else. And I took that, and then it built, then he gave me the next book. It's a book called Go for No. And it just teaches you when you hear no, it means it's a good thing to hear no. So when you hear rejection, that should feel you that you're getting closer to a yes. And then Darren Hardy, who's a motivational speaker, I got a book called The Compound Effect. Took that book and built good habits for myself. Then he has another book called Entrepreneur Roller Coaster, teaches you how to run your own business, be an entrepreneur. And so I literally, anybody who works with me, that's on my team, a kid, I literally give them that, like, hey, just do this. This got me to, hey, core started. You saw the beginning years of the year. I think you're the 4th year of core. We're here now, and it's 100 and almost 200 kids in the program in multiple sports. But I believe it's all because I self-improve, because I'm always focused on being a better person and working on myself to help other people. Not for me, because if it was for me, I'd be making a lot more money, probably trying to do it in the NBA. But I do this for other people, and so I would just be helping people become their best selves somehow, some way.
It's good stuff right there.
Yeah.
I would leave you with this. I would leave you with that. Coach Wooden told me one time, drink richly from good books. Yeah. And you mentioned there the different books that were about different things that you obviously have read and you've taken from, and you've built the direction for who you are philosophically and as a person that can help others. And I think that reading is one of those great gifts that's maybe not used as much as it should be.
Absolutely.
So you obviously are on the right path.
No, thank you. Great questions.
Yeah.
They may have been the best questions we've had on this show, actually. That was really good, because it opened me up to stuff I didn't think I would say. So got a 24-second shot clock.
Okay.
All right, that's your camera right there.
Uh-oh.
Do you have social media?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Barely.
It's an old people joke, guys. Not that old. All right. So where they can find you on social media, and then any message that you'd like to share with them.
Oh my goodness! I think I'm J Dunlap on X, not Twitter, now, and I think it's the same with Instagram. I think I'm one and the same. Yeah. It's Coach JD44 at gmail.com to ever reach out to me for anything. One of the things that I'm doing, much like you're way more advanced and have thought it through, but I do want to give back to the game and help people understand the journey they're on in making decisions on who to play for, where to go to high school, if they're fortunate enough to be recruited. Now, again, I told you I have a different appreciation for it now, being on both sides, the recruiter and the recruited. And I think now I could really help people be clearer with the questions they should ask, the boxes they need to check, the things they need to focus on, stay away from the frivolous, and help their children make the best decision for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, so that would be, eventually I'm going to get myself into a situation to do that a little bit more out and about. I'm trying to figure that out. I have been for a little bit. Brady's done Brady's training program, I think, is great, and it's one that I put together, one that I actually got in part from a old-time shooting coach with the Detroit Pistons, and through that, Brady's become known as a sharpshooter, and that is a skill much needed in basketball today with the three-point line and how the game is played. Is what it is. So I want to help people with that as well. We produced a video for it, and it's not just a simple, well, hold the ball this way and it's not that. It kind of shows how we built his shot, and then the drills that we do to reestablish, or not to reestablish, but to establish the habits that you need to have to shoot the ball properly, and to shoot it at game speed and under game conditions. And I want to share that with more people too. So
is that available now?
Yeah, I really have. Yes, I mean it is. But again, I'm not as far down the tracks with producing that or whatnot. But I'm first foremost supporting Brady, watching Brady. But as he has success, and as people recognize what his skill set is, and they say, "Hey, how did he get to be that good at that?"
Yeah.
That I can help
Awesome.
people do that. So yeah, that's kind of what it's all about.
Jeff, a pleasure. Thank you.
Very good. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
A lot of fun.
That's all we have today, folks. We'll see you next time. Peace.